Now, that uniform's fake. Stop playing games.
Officer, I'm Commander Marcus Sterling, U.S. Navy. Call your watch commander right now.
Turn around. Hands behind your back. Don't make me light you up.
I'm not resisting. This is unlawful. You do this, you're ending your career on camera.
The security footage from Terminal 3 at O'Hare International Airport is grainy, but the image is unmistakable. It captures a moment of such profound disrespect and professional incompetence that it would eventually be screened in police academies and military briefings from San Diego to Norfolk. At 10:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, amidst the bustle of travelers and the drone of intercom announcements, a man in a pristine navy dress white uniform was violently tackled to the linoleum floor. The man face down on the ground with a knee pressed into his spine wasn't a threat. He wasn't a terrorist. He wasn't a criminal. He was Commander Marcus Sterling, a 48-year-old Navy SEAL with 26 years of service, a man who had led covert operations in 3 different war zones and held a top-secret clearance that granted him access to information the president sees, and the man pressing that knee into his back. That was Officer Kyle Vance, a 28-year-old airport cop who had decided based on absolutely nothing but his own bias and arrogance that a black man couldn't possibly be a high-ranking naval officer. Before we unravel the details of this career-ending catastrophe, I need you to take a second. Look at the subscribe button. If you believe that our veterans deserve respect and that bad cops need to be exposed, go ahead and click it. Leave a comment below telling me your state or country. We need to know who is watching, because this story isn't just about one bad arrest. It's about a system that failed a hero. Commander Sterling wasn't looking for trouble that morning. He was looking for his mother. She was flying in from Charlotte for her 75th birthday, and Sterling had taken leave specifically to greet her. He wore his dress whites because she loved seeing him in them. To her, the uniform wasn't just clothing. It was proof that her son had made it, that he was safe, that he was honorable. Sterling stood near the baggage claim exit, his posture perfect, his hands clasped behind his back in a parade rest that had been drilled into him since basic underwater DEMOLITION/SEAL training decades ago. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. The rows of ribbons on his chest, the silver star, the bronze star with valor, the purple heart, were perfectly aligned, spaced with the geometric precision required by Navy regulations. Above them gleamed the gold trident, the badge of the Navy SEALs, a symbol earned through the hardest military training on Earth. Officer Kyle Vance was watching him from about 30 yards away. Vance had been on the airport detail for 18 months. He was bored, he was ambitious, and he was looking for a bust. He considered himself an expert on body language, though his training records would later show he had barely passed the behavioral analysis courses. To Vance, Sterling didn't look like a hero waiting for his mom. He looked like a suspect. In Vance's mind, something didn't add up. The uniform looked too perfect. The man looked too confident. And perhaps most significantly in Vance's subconscious calculation, the man wearing the uniform of a senior naval commander was black. Vance had spent the last week watching stolen valor videos on YouTube clips of veterans confronting civilians wearing fake uniforms. He felt a surge of adrenaline. He convinced himself he was about to catch a fraud. He started walking toward Sterling. He didn't radio it in. He didn't observe for a few more minutes. He didn't ask a supervisor for a second opinion. He just adjusted his utility belt, hitched up his pants, and marched across the terminal floor with the swagger of a man who thinks he owns the place. Sterling didn't see him coming initially. He was checking the arrival board, a small smile on his face as he saw landed next to the Charlotte flight. He checked his watch. He was exactly on time. That's when the shadow fell over him. "Hey you, partner, let's see some ID." The voice was loud, aggressive, and completely devoid of the professional courtesy usually afforded to military officers. Commander Sterling turned slowly. He didn't jump. He didn't look nervous. He simply pivoted on his heel with a controlled grace that should have been the first clue to Officer Vance that he was dealing with a professional. Sterling looked down at the officer, At 6 feet 2 inches and 220 pounds of solid muscle, Sterling physically dwarfed the younger policeman, but his demeanor was non-threatening. He looked at Vance's nameplate, then made eye contact. "Good morning, officer," Sterling said, his voice a deep, calm baritone that carried over the noise of the terminal. "Is there a problem?" "I said I want to see some ID," Vance repeated, stepping into Sterling's personal space. He had his thumbs hooked into his vest, his chin jutted out. "We've got rules about loitering in the arrival zone, and we've got federal laws about impersonating military personnel. So let's see the card." Sterling blinked. In his 26 years of service, he had been shot at, blown up, and interrogated, but he had rarely been insulted quite this brazenly in his own country. He realized immediately what was happening: the stolen valor accusation. It was offensive, deeply so, but Sterling was a disciplinarian. He knew how to handle subordinates who stepped out of line, and he viewed this officer as a confused subordinate in the chain of command of public service. "Officer Vance," Sterling said, reading the name tag aloud. "I am waiting for a family member arriving on Flight 1402. I am not loitering. As for my identity, I am Commander Marcus Sterling, United States Navy. I have my military identification in my breast pocket. I am going to reach for it slowly with my left hand." "Don't give me that speech," Vance snapped. "You guys always have a speech. You think you can buy a costume at a surplus store and get early boarding, get free drinks at the bar? It's sickening." Sterling's expression hardened. The accusation was no longer just annoying. It was a direct attack on his honor. "Officer, I advise you to lower your voice and check your facts. I am an active duty commissioned officer. Accusing me of stolen valor without evidence is a serious mistake." "The evidence is right in front of me," Vance sneered. He looked Sterling up and down, his eyes lingering on the heavy rack of medals. "That's a lot of hardware for one guy. Silver Star Navy, Cross. You expect me to believe you're some kind of war hero? You don't look like a SEAL to me." "And what does a SEAL look like, officer?" Sterling asked quietly. The question hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Vance didn't answer the question directly. He was too far gone, too committed to the narrative he had constructed in his head. "Just give me the wallet. Now." Sterling maintained eye contact. "I will provide my common access card. It is federal property. You will treat it with respect." Slowly, deliberately, Sterling reached into his interior pocket. He moved with the fluid precision of a man who had practiced drawing weapons under fire, but this time he produced a standard-issue Department of Defense ID card. He held it out. Vance snatched it from his hand. He didn't scan it. He barely looked at the holographic security features. He glanced at the photo, then back at Sterling, then scoffed. "This looks fake as hell. Where'd you get this?" "The internet." "That is a government-issued credential," Sterling said, his voice dropping an octave. "If you run that number through your dispatch, it will verify my rank and status immediately. I suggest you do that before this goes any further." "I don't need to run anything," Vance said, shoving the ID into his own pocket. "I know a fake when I see one. You're coming with me. We're going to sort this out in the back, and you're going to take off that uniform before you disgrace it any further." The commotion had begun to draw a crowd. Travelers pulling rolling suitcases slowed down. A group of college students waiting for a flight to Denver stopped and watched. A businessman in a gray suit took a few steps closer, and inevitably the phones came out. First 1, then 3, then 10. The lens of public scrutiny was now focused entirely on Officer Vance and Commander Sterling. Sterling noticed the cameras. He knew exactly how this played out in the modern world. He knew that one wrong move, one flinch, one raised voice could be edited to make him look like the aggressor. He had to be perfect. He had to be the officer the Navy trained him to be. "Officer Vance," Sterling said, speaking clearly enough for the microphones on the nearby phones to pick it up. "You have seized my military identification without cause. You are detaining a senior officer of the United States Armed Forces without reasonable suspicion of a crime. I am ordering you to contact your watch commander immediately." "You don't give orders here, buddy." Vance spat, his face flushing red. He felt the eyes of the crowd. He felt his authority wavering. The man in front of him wasn't cowering. He wasn't begging. He was commanding. And Vance couldn't handle it. "I'm the police. You're a suspect. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." "I am requesting a supervisor," Sterling repeated. "Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and Civil Law, I have identified myself. I have committed no crime. I am waiting for my mother. If you arrest me, you are violating my civil rights and interfering with the duties of a federal officer." "Last warning," Vance shouted, his hand dropping to his belt. He didn't go for his handcuffs first. He went for his taser. The bright yellow handle was visible to everyone. The crowd gasped. "He's a soldier, man. Leave him alone," someone shouted from the back. "Check his ID properly," another voice yelled. Vance spun toward the crowd for a split second. "Back up. Everyone back the hell up. This is an active investigation." He turned back to Sterling, his taser now unholstered, pointing at the chest of a man who had survived firefights in Afghanistan that would have made Vance wet his pants. Sterling looked at the taser. He calculated the distance. 7 feet. He knew that if he wanted to, he could close that gap, disarm Vance, and incapacitate him before the officer could pull the trigger. It was muscle memory. It would be easy. But Sterling also knew that if he did that, he would be the violent black man on the evening news. He would be the soldier who snapped. His career would be over. The narrative would be lost. He made the hardest choice of his life. He chose not to fight. "I am not resisting," Sterling said, opening his hands and holding them out to his sides, palms forward. "I am unarmed. I am complying under duress. Put the weapon away, officer. You are making a mistake that you cannot undo." "Turn around," Vance screamed, his voice cracking. He was shaking. The adrenaline was dumping into his system, making him erratic. He holstered the taser hurriedly and lunged forward. The tackle was unnecessary, clumsy, and violent. Vance didn't just guide Sterling's hands behind his back. He threw his entire body weight into Sterling's shoulder, hooking a leg to trip him. Sterling, having decided to submit, allowed gravity to take him. He didn't brace himself. He went down hard. The sound of the impact was sickening, a heavy thud of bone and muscle hitting the commercial-grade floor tiles. The crowd screamed. "Oh my God! What are you doing?" "He didn't do anything." Sterling hit the ground chest first. The rows of medals, his silver star, his purple heart were crushed between his sternum and the cold floor. The pin clasps dug into his skin. His pristine white uniform, the symbol of the Navy's honor, smeared against the dirty airport floor. Vance jumped on top of him, driving a knee into the small of Sterling's back. "Stop fighting. Stop resisting," Vance yelled for the benefit of the cameras, despite the fact that Sterling was lying perfectly still. "I am not resisting," Sterling said, his face pressed against the floor. His voice was muffled but steady. "I have not moved. You are assaulting a federal officer." Vance grabbed Sterling's wrists and wrenched them behind his back, twisting the shoulders to a painful angle. He slapped the handcuffs on. Click, click. The metal bit into Sterling's wrists. Vance stood up and yanked Sterling to his feet by the chain of the handcuffs, a maneuver designed to inflict pain. Sterling stood up. His uniform was ruined. Dust and grime covered the front of his jacket. His hat. His cover had been knocked off and kicked a few feet away. A bystander, an older woman with tears in her eyes, picked it up and held it to her chest, too afraid to hand it to the officer. Sterling looked at Vance. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. He looked at the young officer with the kind of pity a father feels for a child who has just broken something irreplaceable. "You have the right to remain silent," Vance recited, breathing heavily, trying to regain his composure as he marched Sterling toward the security office. "I know my rights," Sterling said softly, "and I know yours, and I know that you have just ended your career, son. I hope it was worth it." Vance shoved him forward. "Shut up. Keep walking." They walked past the crowd. Hundreds of people were watching now. The phones were tracking every step. The video was already being uploaded to Twitter, to Facebook, to TikTok. By the time they reached the holding cell doors, the hashtag airport arrest was already trending locally. But Vance didn't know that yet. He thought he had won. He thought he was about to expose a fraud. He had no idea that the man he had in cuffs was one of the Pentagon's most valued assets. The airport police station was a sterile, fluorescent-lit box of concrete and glass tucked away behind the baggage claim area. Vance shoved Commander Sterling into the holding chair, a metal seat bolted to the floor with a terrifyingly permanent feel. He didn't uncuff him. He left Sterling sitting there, hands bound behind his back, uniform disheveled, while he walked over to the processing desk to start the paperwork. Vance tossed Sterling's wallet and the confiscated military ID onto the desk with a clatter. He grabbed a form and started filling it out. Suspect male, black. Charge impersonating an officer, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. He felt a rush of self-righteousness. He was going to be the hero who stopped a stolen Valor dirtbag. The door to the watch commander's office opened. Sergeant Thomas Miller stepped out. Miller was 58 years old, a former Marine who had seen combat in Desert Storm. He was 2 years away from retirement, tired and looking forward to his pension. He held a mug of coffee in one hand and a stack of files in the other. He looked up and saw the prisoner. The coffee mug didn't drop, but Miller's hand shook enough to spill hot liquid over his knuckles. He didn't notice the burn. Miller stared. He didn't just see a black man in a white suit. He saw the details. His Marine Corps training kicked in. He saw the fit of the uniform tailored not off-the-rack surplus. He saw the Budweiser, the Seal Trident gold and heavy. He saw the ribbons, Silver Star, Navy Cross, Purple Heart. And he saw the demeanor. The man in the chair wasn't slouched. He was sitting at attention even in handcuffs. His eyes were laser-focused, calm, and terrifyingly intelligent. "Vance," Miller said. His voice was a hoarse whisper. What is this?" "Caught a live one, Sarge," Vance said, grinning. "Stolen Valor. Guy was loitering at baggage claim. Fake ID the works. Resisted arrest, so I had to take him down. I'm writing it up now." Miller walked slowly to the desk. He didn't look at Vance. He looked at the ID card lying there. He picked it up. He felt the weight of it. He looked at the chip. He looked at the name. Marcus A. Sterling, Commander, USN. Miller felt the blood drain from his face. He looked at the wallet. He opened it. Inside, right next to a picture of 2 kids and a wife, was a folded laminate card. Pentagon Access Level 5. Top Secret /SCI. Miller looked at Vance. "You arrested a commander." "It's fake, Sarge. Look at him," Vance said, gesturing vaguely at Sterling. Miller slammed his hand on the desk so hard the stapler jumped. "Shut your mouth. Shut your damn mouth right now." Miller rounded the desk and ran to Sterling. "Commander." "Sir, Miller fumbled for his keys. "I am so sorry. I am so incredibly sorry." He unlocked the cuffs with trembling hands. Sterling rubbed his wrists. He stood up and adjusted his jacket, brushing the dust off his ribbons. He looked at Miller. "Sergeant, you served..." "Marines, sir. 1st Division, Desert Storm." Miller stammered. "Then you know what this is," Sterling said, pointing to the trident. "Yes, sir. I do." "Your officer," Sterling said, his voice cold and flat, "tackled me. He ignored my credentials. He assaulted me in front of civilians, and he did it because he couldn't believe a black man could be a SEAL." Sir, I can explain." Vance started realizing the mood had shifted, but not understanding the magnitude yet. "Vance, get out," Miller hissed. "Get out of this room. Go to the break room and sit down. Don't touch anything. Don't speak to anyone." "But Sarge..." "Go!" Miller roared. Vance slinked away, looking confused. Miller turned back to Sterling. "Sir, can I get you water? A medical officer?" I don't want water, Sergeant, Sterling said. I want my phone. I need to make 2 calls. One is to my mother, who is currently standing at baggage claim wondering where her son is. And the second is to the Judge Advocate General's office at the Pentagon. You might want to call your chief. He's going to have a very bad day. The speed at which the United States military can move when one of its own is threatened is terrifying to behold. Sterling made his call. He spoke for 3 minutes. He gave his name, rank, service number, and a brief clinical description of the event. He didn't yell. He didn't exaggerate. He simply reported the facts to the duty officer at the Pentagon. 30 minutes later, the atmosphere in the airport police station had changed from a municipal office to a disaster zone. The phone lines were melting down. First, it was the local Navy liaison from Great Lakes Naval Station. Then a call from the office of the Secretary of the Navy. Then the FBI field office in Chicago called to inquire about a civil rights violation involving a federal asset. Chief of Airport Police Robert Galloway arrived 40 minutes after the arrest. He had been on the golf course. He was still wearing his polo shirt, sweat dripping down his forehead. He burst into the station to find Commander Sterling sitting in the sergeant's office drinking a bottle of water, while Sergeant Miller stood at attention by the door. "Commander Sterling," Chief Galloway said, breathless. "I'm Chief Galloway. There has been a terrible misunderstanding." Sterling looked at the chief. "There is no misunderstanding, Chief. Misunderstandings are when you get the wrong coffee order. This was an assault. This was an unlawful detention. This was a violation of the Fourth Amendment and the Uniform Code of Military Justice." "We can fix this," Galloway said, wiping his brow. "We can drop all charges immediately. We'll expunge the record. I'll have the officer apologize personally." "You think an apology fixes this?" Sterling stood up. The room seemed to shrink. "My mother saw me in handcuffs on the news before she saw me in person. The video has 2 million views. You cannot fix the image of a United States commander being treated like a criminal because of the color of his skin." At that moment, the front doors of the station opened. 4 men in dark suits walked in, followed by 2 uniformed Navy Shore Patrol officers. The man in front flashed a badge. "Naval Criminal Investigative Service. We are taking custody of the evidence regarding the assault on Commander Sterling." Galloway looked at Miller. Miller looked at the floor. "Where is the officer?" the NCIS agent asked. "In the break room," Miller whispered. "Bring him out." Vance was brought out. He looked small now. He looked young. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a dawning horror. The NCIS agent looked at him. "Officer Vance, you are being relieved of your weapon and badge pending a federal investigation into civil rights violations and assault on a federal officer." Galloway nodded to Miller. Miller stepped forward and unclipped Vance's badge. He took the gun from the holster. He took the radio. "You're done, son," Miller said quietly. Vance looked at Sterling. I thought you were faking it. I saw the videos." "You saw what you wanted to see," Sterling said. "And because of that, you will never wear a badge again." The fallout was nuclear. The video of the tackle didn't just go viral. It became a cultural touchstone. Every news network in the country ran it on a loop. CNN, Fox, MSNBC. They all had the same headline, "Hero in Handcuffs." The contrast was too perfect, too painful. The pristine white uniform, the brutal sloppy tackle, the calm dignity of the commander versus the frantic aggression of the cop. The investigation that followed was merciless. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division stepped in side by side with the Navy. They pulled Vance's file apart. They found what everyone suspected, but nobody had checked. Vance had a history. 3 complaints of excessive force in 18 months. All against minorities, all dismissed by Chief Galloway as proactive policing. They found his internet search history filled with alt-right forums and stolen valor hunter groups. He wasn't a protector. He was a predator with a badge looking for a target that fit his worldview. Chief Galloway was forced into early retirement 3 weeks later. The city of Chicago, desperate to stop the bleeding, didn't even try to defend the lawsuit. They settled. The number was astronomical, $3.5 million. But the money wasn't the point. Commander Sterling refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He wanted everything public. He wanted Vance's deposition released. He wanted the body camera footage released. Vance was fired, obviously, but the Pentagon pushed for more. They pushed for federal charges, deprivation of rights under color of law. Vance was indicted 6 months later. He faced a jury that had all seen the video. He was convicted and sentenced to 30 months in federal prison. The stolen valor defense his lawyer tried to use, that he honestly believed Sterling was a fraud, crumbled instantly when the prosecution pointed out that he never actually verified the ID. He didn't care about the truth. He cared about the power. 6 months after the incident, Commander Marcus Sterling stood on the deck of a destroyer docked in San Diego. He was back in uniform. His ribbons were new, replaced by the Navy after the originals were damaged in the arrest. He looked out at the Pacific Ocean, the salt air filling his lungs. He had donated the entire $3.5 million settlement. Half went to the Navy SEAL Foundation to support the families of fallen operators. The other half went to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, specifically earmarked to help veterans of color who had been mistreated by police. Sterling's career wasn't erased. In fact, he was promoted to captain the following year. He became a vocal advocate for police reform, bridging the gap between the military and law enforcement. He used his voice, his rank, and that terrible video to force change. Kyle Vance, on the other hand, was erased. After his release from prison, he couldn't get a job in security. He couldn't own a firearm. He was a felon. He moved back in with his parents in Ohio, working construction under the table, forever known as the man who tackled a Navy SEAL. The story ends in the quiet of a courtroom hallway where Sterling saw Vance one last time during the sentencing. Vance looked broken. He looked at Sterling and finally truly lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry," Vance had whispered. Sterling had looked at him not with anger, but with the heavy burden of a man who knows the world is slow to change. "Be better," Sterling had said. And he walked away. This story matters because it terrifies us. It terrifies us because we know that if Marcus Sterling had been wearing jeans and a hoodie instead of dress whites, if he had been a plumber instead of a commander, he might still be in that cell. Or worse. He had the armor of his rank, and even that almost wasn't enough. It reminds us that bias is a blinder. It blinds people to truth, to logic, and to humanity. Vance saw a color and stopped seeing a man. He saw a stereotype and missed the hero standing right in front of him. So I have to ask you, how many Marcus Sterlings are out there who didn't have the rank to save them? How many careers have been ruined? How many lives derailed because an authority figure saw what they wanted to see instead of what was real? Drop a comment below. Comment. Does this story change how you view stolen valor confrontations? Do you think the punishment for Officer Vance was enough? And please, if you believe in justice, if you believe in honoring those who serve truly, honoring them not just when it fits a narrative, hit that subscribe button. Share this story. We need to keep the lights on. We need to keep watching. Because the cameras are rolling and the truth needs to be told.